Love spine-chilling tailies that keep you up at night? On this channel, we bring you original scary stories, narrated to send shivers down your spine. Hit like if you enjoy the scares, and subscribe so you never miss a story that will haunt your imagination long after the lights go out. So, without further ado, here are 25 short scary stories. Story 1, The Last Call. The first voicemail arrived at 11:47 p.m. I didn't hear it come in. My phone was face down on my desk, screen dark, room lit only by the glow of my laptop. I was halfway through homework I wasn't really doing when my phone vibrated once, short, sharp, like it was trying not to be noticed. When I picked it up, I frowned. Missed call, me. Same number, same contact photo, same name. I laughed at first, some glitch. It had happened before, phones doing weird things when updates went wrong. Still, something about it felt off. I hadn't been calling myself. I hadn't even touched my phone in the last 20 minutes. Then I saw the voicemail icon. One new message. The timestamp said 11:52 p.m. The current time was 11:47 p.m. I stared at it longer than I should have. Okay, I muttered. Very funny. I pressed play. At first, there was only static. Then breathing, slow, uneven, like someone trying to stay quiet. I almost stopped it right there. Then a voice spoke. My voice. Hey, it whispered. If you're listening to this, I don't have much time. My stomach tightened. I hadn't recorded this. I knew I hadn't. There's someone in the house, the voice continued. I think they know I know. The sound shifted, like the phone had been moved. A floorboard creaked in the background. My own breath caught in my chest as I listened to myself breathe. You need to lock your door, the voice said. And don't answer the phone again, no matter what. The voicemail ended. I sat perfectly still, phone trembling slightly in my hand. The house around me was quiet, too quiet. No footsteps, no voices, just the hum of the refrigerator down the hall. I checked the doors. Locked windows, closed, everything was normal. I told myself it was a prank, someone spoofing my number, a cruel joke. Then my phone rang. Incoming call, me. I didn't answer. The ringing stopped after 4 seconds. A moment later, another voicemail notification appeared. Timestamp, 12:03 a.m. It was still 11:49. I didn't want to listen. I really didn't, but my thumb moved on its own. This one started without static. They're closer now, my voice whispered. I made a mistake, I answered. There was a sharp sound, like a door opening too fast. My voice gasped. If you're still there, it said, urgent now, hide. They don't look like. The message cut off. I stood up so fast my chair scraped loudly across the floor. The sound echoed through the house, and for a split second, I thought I heard something else echo back. I locked myself in my room. Minutes passed, nothing happened. I almost convinced myself it was over, until my phone vibrated again. This time, it wasn't a call. It was a text. From me. Time sent, 12:17 a.m. They don't sound like us. My heart hammered. I typed back before I could stop myself. Who are they? The reply came instantly. You'll hear them soon. That's when I heard the knock. Not on my bedroom door. On my phone speaker. 3 soft taps. From inside the voicemail app. Story 2, The House That Breathes. The house had a rhythm. I noticed it the first night after we moved in. Lying in bed, staring at the unfamiliar ceiling, I heard a sound that didn't belong to any appliance or pipe, a deep, slow exhale. At first, I thought it was the wind. Old houses made noises. Everyone said that. But the windows were shut, and the sound didn't whistle or rattle. It was warm, heavy, almost tired. Like breathing. I sat up, listening. In. Out. Each breath took several seconds, followed by a pause that made my skin prickle. When the sound stopped, the silence felt strained, like something holding itself still. I didn't mention it to my parents. They were already stressed enough. New job, new town, new everything. I didn't want to be the kid complaining about spooky noises. The second night, I heard it again. This time, I followed it. The sound came from the hallway. As I stepped out of my room, the air felt different, thicker, warmer. The walls seemed to hum faintly, like a low vibration under my fingertips. I pressed my ear against the wallpaper. The breathing was louder there. I pulled back so fast I nearly tripped. The wall exhaled. A soft rush of warm air brushed my face, carrying a faint smell, not mold or dust, but something organic, like skin after being in the sun too long. I didn't sleep after that. Over the next few days, I started noticing other things. The house felt warmer at night, even when the heat was off. Doors creaked open on their own, not from drafts, but slowly, deliberately. And the breathing always stopped when someone else entered the room. One evening, I asked my dad if he'd noticed anything strange. "Like what?" he said, barely looking up from his phone. "Like noises from the walls." He laughed. "Old insulation, pipes expanding. Trust me, this place is solid." But that night, the breathing changed. It sped up. I was brushing my teeth when I heard it, shorter breaths now, uneven. The mirror fogged faster than usual, even though the water wasn't that hot. In the reflection, the wall behind me looked like it was moving. Just slightly, like a chest rising. I ran to my room and slammed the door, locking it. The breathing followed me. It always did. In. Out. Then quietly, almost shyly. Tap, tap. From inside the wall. I pressed my back against the door, heart racing. "Hello," I whispered, hatting myself for doing it. The breathing paused. Then a sound came through the wall, not a voice, not words, but something close enough to make my stomach drop. A vibration shaped like speech, as if the house was remembering how to talk. That night, I dreamed I was standing outside, watching the house sleep, watching the walls rise and fall, windows fogging with each breath. When I woke up, my bed was warm. Too warm. And the breathing was coming from beneath me. Story 3, footsteps above the ceiling. Our house only had one floor. That's important. Because the footsteps started a week after we moved in, and they came from directly above my bedroom ceiling. The first time I heard them, I thought I was imagining it. I was half asleep, drifting in that place between dreams and waking, when something thumped overhead. Then another. Slow, careful. Like someone testing each step. I sat up, staring at the ceiling fan. The sound stopped. The next night, it happened again, clearer this time. 3 footsteps, moving from one end of the room to the other. I waited for my parents to say something. They didn't. The third night, I asked my mom. "Did you hear that walking sound last night?" I asked casually. She frowned. "Walking where?" "Above my room." She paused, then smiled in that tight way adults do when they're trying not to worry you. "Honey, there's nothing above your room, just the attic space, and no one's been up there in years." That didn't help. The footsteps continued every night after that, always after midnight, always slow, always stopping when I turned on the light. Until one night, they didn't stop. I flicked the switch, heart pounding. The footsteps kept going. Back and forth. Back and forth. I grabbed my phone and started recording, whispering, "Do you hear that? That's above my ceiling." The footsteps paused. Then something dragged. A long scraping sound, like fingernails across wood. I ran into the hallway and shouted for my parents. They came out, annoyed and sleepy, and stood there while the house stayed completely silent. "See," my dad said, "nothing." I showed them the recording. The audio played back with only my breathing. No footsteps, no scraping, nothing. That night, I locked my door. At 12:41 a.m., the footsteps returned faster now, heavier. They stopped directly above my bed. Then the ceiling creaked. A fine line appeared, stretching slowly across the paint, Dust drifted down, landing on my blanket. Something pressed against the ceiling from above. Not stepping. Leaning. I heard breathing. Not the house. When the ceiling finally cracked open, I realized the footsteps hadn't been walking on the attic floor. They'd been walking on the ceiling. Story 4, the clock that counts down. The clock didn't belong to anyone. That was the strange part. It was already on the wall when we moved in, an old analog clock with a wooden frame, its glass face slightly cloudy with age. No one remembered hanging it. No one remembered buying it. But it was there, ticking softly in the hallway like it always had been. At first, it didn't work. The hands were frozen at 3:17. And no matter how many times my dad replaced the batteries, it refused to move. Eventually, everyone just accepted it as decoration. Everyone except me. Because one night, as I passed it on my way to the kitchen, I heard it tick. Just once. I stopped and stared at it. The second hand twitched forward, then stilled again. I leaned closer. Nothing. The next morning, the clock read 3:16. I thought it was a mistake. Maybe the hands had slipped. Maybe someone had bumped it. But the day after that, it read 3:15. It was counting down. I started checking it obsessively. Every day, the time moved back exactly 1 minute. Never faster, never slower. When I mentioned it, my parents brushed it off. Old clocks do weird things, my mom said. Stop worrying. But I couldn't. At 3:10, I noticed something else. The ticking only happened when no one was watching. If I stared at the clock long enough, it stayed silent. But the moment I turned away, tick. One night, I set up my phone to record it. The video showed the clock perfectly still. The audio picked up the ticking. By 3:05, the house started changing. Lights flickered more often. Doors didn't quite close all the way. The air felt heavier, like the house was holding its breath. I dreamed of the clock. In the dream, it wasn't on the wall. It was lying on the floor, its face cracked, hands spinning wildly backward while something behind the glass knocked, desperate to get out. When I woke up, the clock read 3:01. I tried to take it down. The nail wouldn't budge. The frame felt warm, almost pulsing under my fingers. When I pulled harder, the ticking grew louder, faster, like a heartbeat racing. I let go. That night, no one slept. At 3:00, the ticking stopped. The silence was worse. At 2:59, the clock rang. Not like an alarm, like a bell tolling deep underwater. The sound rolled through the house, vibrating the walls, rattling picture frames. And then the front door unlocked itself. At 2:58, someone knocked. Slow, patient. My parents stood frozen in the hallway, staring at the door. None of us moved. None of us breathed. The clock kept ticking. At 2:57, the knocking stopped. At 2:56, footsteps entered the house. The clock is still counting down. We don't look at it anymore. Story 5, the guest room. We only used the guest room twice a year. It was always clean, always ready, but somehow never felt lived in. The air inside was colder than the rest of the house, and no matter how often we opened the curtains, the light seemed dimmer there. The first guest to mention the dreams was my aunt. Over breakfast, she hesitated before speaking. "This might sound strange," she said, lowering her voice, "but did anyone stand in the guest room last night?" My mom laughed. "Of course not." My aunt frowned. "I dreamed someone was standing in the corner, just watching." We brushed it off. Then my cousin stayed over. Then my grandmother. Every guest told the same story. Someone standing in the far corner of the room, not moving, not speaking, just watching. Always watching. I didn't believe them. Until I slept there myself. It was my idea. If everyone else was imagining it, I'd prove it. I took my pillow, my blanket, and went to bed with the lights on. I stared at the corner all night. Nothing happened. Eventually, I fell asleep. I dreamed I couldn't move. The room was dark. The air felt thick, pressing down on me. And in the corner, something stood, taller than the ceiling, its shape wrong, like it hadn't finished deciding what it was supposed to look like. It leaned forward. When I woke up, the lights were off. The corner was empty, but the carpet there was warm. After that, I started noticing things. The guest room door creaked open at night. Dust gathered in the corner faster than anywhere else. Sometimes, when I passed by, I felt eyes on my back. One evening, I heard my name whispered from inside the room. I didn't answer. I never slept there again. Last month, we had guests over. They didn't mention any dreams. They didn't mention the corner. They didn't mention the figure standing beside the bed. Because it wasn't watching them anymore. It was standing in the doorway. Story 6, Whispers in the Fog. Fog wasn't unusual in our town. It rolled in from the river most mornings, thick enough to blur streetlights and soften the edges of buildings. People drove slower on fog days. Schools delayed openings. Life adjusted. But the fog that came that night wasn't normal. It arrived too fast. One moment, the street outside my bedroom window was clear. The next, it was gone, swallowed whole by a pale gray wall that pressed up against the glass like it was curious. I watched it from my bed, uneasy but fascinated. The fog didn't drift. It didn't move like weather. It waited. That's when I heard my name. Soft, familiar, right outside my window. I froze. It sounded like my mom's voice. Calm, warm, the kind of voice that made you feel safe without trying. Come outside, it said. I didn't move. A second voice joined it, then a third. Different tones, different people, but all of them knew my name, knew how to say it the way people who loved me said it. I pulled the curtains shut. The next morning, the fog was gone. So was Mr. Calder from 3 houses down. People said he must have wandered off. He was old, confused. The fog had been thick. No one mentioned the whispers. Until it happened again. The fog returned a week later, earlier this time. It crept along the sidewalks, spilling over lawns, pressing against doors. I heard voices everywhere now, slipping through cracks and keyholes. Just for a second, they said. We're waiting. Everyone else already came. I stayed inside. I turned on music. I covered my ears. In the distance, I heard a door open. Then another. By morning, 5 people were missing. The town put up warnings. Stay inside. Lock your doors. Don't listen. But the fog learned. It stopped whispering from outside. On the 3rd night, I heard my name from inside the house. Right behind me. Story 7, the chair in the basement. We didn't use the basement much. It was unfinished. Concrete floor, exposed beams, a single light bulb hanging from the ceiling. The kind of place that felt colder than it should, even in summer. The chair wasn't there when we moved in. I'm sure of that. It appeared one afternoon while I was home alone. A plain wooden chair, sitting in the middle of the basement floor, facing the stairs. I stared at it from the top step. Dad, I called. No answer. I went back upstairs and waited. When my parents got home, I asked them about it. What chair? My mom said. We went down together. The chair was gone. I felt embarrassed, like I'd imagined the whole thing. Until the next day when it was back, this time facing the far wall. It kept changing. Every time I went down there, the chair was turned in a new direction. Sometimes angled slightly, like whoever moved it hadn't quite finished. No one admitted to touching it. I stopped going into the basement. Then I started hearing it. The scrape of wood on concrete. Slow, careful. Always late at night. One evening, I worked up the courage to look. I stood at the top of the stairs, heart pounding, and flipped on the light. The chair sat at the bottom, facing me. I took a step back. The chair didn't move, but I had the sudden, overwhelming feeling that it wanted to. That night, I dreamed I was sitting in it, unable to stand, unable to turn my head. The basement stretched endlessly in front of me, and behind, just out of sight, I felt someone waiting for me to move. I woke up sweating. The next morning, the chair was gone. Relief washed over me, until I went downstairs and noticed something new. Scrape marks, leading from the center of the basement to the bottom of the stairs. And one final mark, right where I usually stand. Story 8, the streetlight rule. Everyone on my block knew the rule. You didn't learn it from your parents, and you never saw it written anywhere, but somehow every kid learned it eventually. If a streetlight flickers at night, do not stand under it. No one ever explained why. When I asked my older brother, he just said, "Because bad things happen," and refused to say more. When I asked my friends, they laughed nervously and changed the subject. I didn't believe in rules without reasons. That changed the night I stayed out too late. I was walking home just after midnight, earbuds in, the street empty and quiet. Halfway down the block, the streetlight ahead of me flickered, once, twice, casting the pavement in uneven shadows. I stopped. The rule echoed in my head. I laughed at myself and kept walking. As soon as I stepped into the pool of light, the world felt smaller. The sound of my footsteps dulled. The air grew heavy, like I'd stepped underwater. The streetlight buzzed loudly above me. Then it went out. Total darkness. I froze. Behind me, something breathed. Slow, deep, patient. I didn't turn around. The light snapped back on. The street was empty again. No breathing, no footsteps, nothing. I ran the rest of the way home. The next day I asked around, quietly, carefully. 3 people on our block had disappeared over the years, all of them last seen standing under flickering streetlights. That night, I looked out my window. Down the street, the same light flickered again. And beneath it, something tall stood perfectly still. Waiting. Story 9, the locked playground. The playground had been locked for years. Rust clung to the swings. The slide was cracked and sun-faded. A chain-link fence surrounded the whole thing, the gate secured with a heavy padlock. No one went inside anymore. But at night, the swings still moved. I noticed it walking home from a friend's house. The street was quiet, and the playground sat dark behind the fence, except for the faint creak of metal. One swing swayed gently back and forth. There was no wind. I stopped to watch. The swing slowed, then stopped completely. Then another swing began to move. I stepped closer, gripping the fence. That's when I heard it. Laughter. Soft, distant, childlike. The kind that echoed in a way it shouldn't. I backed away and went home. The next night, the laughter returned, louder this time. More voices joined in, overlapping, giggling, whispering. The swings moved faster, chains rattling like they were being pulled by invisible hands. I told my parents. They said the playground was closed for safety reasons, old equipment, liability issues. They didn't say anything about the accident. I found out from a neighbor. Years ago, a group of kids had snuck into the playground at night. The gate locked behind them somehow. No one heard them calling for help. By the time they were found, the swings were still moving. Now, every night, I pass the playground. The gate is always locked. But sometimes, when the laughter is loudest, I see small handprints pressed against the fence. On the outside. Story 10, the empty school. The school was officially closed. A burst pipe over winter break flooded half the building, and repairs took longer than expected. Classes moved online. Teachers worked from home. The parking lot stayed empty. Except at night. I lived close enough to see the front entrance from my bedroom window. Most evenings, it sat dark and silent, just a brick shape against the sky. Then one night, the lights came on. Not all at once, room by room. Hallway lights first, then the office, then the gym. At 8:17 p.m., the loudspeakers crackled. "Good evening, students," a voice said. It was calm, familiar. It was our principal. I froze. "There will be a brief announcement," the voice continued. "Please return to your classrooms." The lights shut off again. The next morning, I asked my friends if they'd heard it. They hadn't. No one had. That night, the announcement returned. Same time, same voice. This time, the lights stayed on longer. I could see shadows moving past classroom windows. At 8:24 p.m., the loudspeaker spoke again. "Attendance will now be taken." I stopped watching after that. But the announcements didn't stop. Every night, the voice grew clearer. It started using names, real names, kids I knew, kids who used to sit next to me in class. A week later, one of them didn't log into school. Then another. The final night, the loudspeaker said my name. "Please report immediately," it announced. I closed my curtains. The next morning, the school was dark again. Classes resumed the following week. But some desks stayed empty. And every so often, during a quiet moment in class, the intercom crackles. Just for a second. Story 11. Someone is editing my memories. It started with a photograph. I found it while cleaning my room, an old picture tucked inside a book I didn't remember owning. It showed me standing in front of my house, smiling at the camera. Only the house looked different. The windows were wrong, the porch rail was missing, and behind me in the doorway, someone stood in shadow. I didn't remember taking the picture. I asked my parents. They didn't remember it either. After that, other things started feeling off. A scar on my arm I couldn't explain. A class project I got credit for but didn't remember doing. Conversations people swore we'd had that I couldn't recall at all. Then my phone started filling in the gaps. Photos appeared overnight, moments from my life I didn't recognize, videos of places I didn't remember visiting. Each one felt almost right, like a memory copied from someone else and pasted into my head. I started writing things down, every day, every detail. One morning, I woke up to find my notebook already filled. In my handwriting. "You noticed too early," the last page read. "We were hopping, you wouldn't." That night, I dreamed I was standing in a room full of screens. Each one showed a different moment from my life. Hands moved between them, cutting, rearranging, deleting. When I woke up, my notebook was gone. So was the photograph. Somewhere along the way, I forgot why that scared me. Story 12, the reflection delay. I first noticed it while brushing my teeth. I leaned closer to the mirror, squinting at something in my eye. When I moved, my reflection followed almost. There was a tiny pause, less than a second, like a video buffering. I laughed it off. Bad lighting, tired eyes. But once I noticed it, I couldn't stop seeing it. Every movement I made came with that same delay, turning my head, raising my hand, smiling. The reflection always caught up, just late enough to feel wrong. I tested it. I waved quickly. My reflection waved back, slower. My stomach tightened. I told myself mirrors didn't lie. They just reflected. But that night, when I turned off the bathroom light, I caught one last glimpse of myself in the dark glass. The reflection didn't turn with me. Over the next few days, the delay grew longer. A second, then two, sometimes more. My reflection started holding expressions I'd already stopped making, smiles that lingered too long, eyes that didn't blink when mine did. One night, I stood in front of the mirror and whispered, "What are you doing?" The reflection's mouth moved a moment later. It whispered back, "I'm practicing." I covered the mirror with a towel, slept with the lights on, avoided reflective surfaces. But reflections are everywhere, windows, screens, dark glass at night. In my phone screen, I saw myself blink after I'd already stopped. On the bus window, I saw my reflection watching me even when I looked away. The final straw came when I brushed past the hallway mirror and heard a sound behind me. A soft tap, like fingers against glass. I ran to my room and locked the door. From the other side of the wall, I heard my own voice speaking softly. "Don't worry," it said. "You won't need the mirror much longer." The next morning, the mirror showed nothing at all. And everyone keeps telling me I look different. Story 13, the rule book. The book appeared on my bed overnight. No one admitted to putting it there. It wasn't mine. The cover was plain black, no title, no name, just a faint imprint where words used to be. Inside, the pages were filled with neat handwriting. Rules. Rule 1. Do not look out the window between 2:11 and 2:17 a.m. Rule 2. If you hear your name called from the hallway, do not answer. Rule 3. Never open the closet after dark. I laughed and closed the book. That night at exactly 2:11 a.m., I woke up. Wide awake. The urge to look out the window was overwhelming, like an itch under my skin. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, counting seconds until 2:17 passed. When it did, I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. The next evening, I heard my name whispered from the hallway. I didn't answer. The whisper grew closer, more insistent, sounding more like me with every step. I held my breath until it faded. The rulebook never changed until I broke one. I forgot. It was late. I was tired. I reached for a sweater in my closet without thinking. The door creaked open. Nothing happened. I laughed nervously. The next morning, the book had a new page. Rule 4, do not forget. After that, the rules started multiplying. New ones appeared every day. Some contradicted each other. Some were impossible. Do not sleep. Do not stay awake. When I hesitated too long, the consequences came. Doors slamming, lights flickering, something moving just out of sight. The last rule appeared tonight. Rule 37, do not finish reading this book. I'm not sure what happens if I stop. And I'm not sure what happens if I don't. Story 14, the voice that answers back. I talk to myself when I'm alone. Not full conversations, just comments. Thoughts said out loud so they feel real. I never thought much about it. A lot of people do it. I stopped when something answered. It happened late, around midnight. I was doing homework at my desk, tired and unfocused. I'll finish this tomorrow, I muttered. From behind me, a voice said, "You said that yesterday." I spun around. No one was there. The house was quiet. My parents were asleep. My door was closed. I stood there for a long moment, heart pounding, then laughed nervously. "Get it together," I told myself. The voice replied, "That's what I'm trying to do." This time, it came from inside my head, and not. The next few days, it only answered sometimes, always softly, always using my voice. It knew things I knew, thoughts I hadn't said yet. When I thought don't answer, it answered. I tried ignoring it. That made it louder. "I'm not hurting anyone," it said once. "I'm just filling in the gaps." At night, it talked while I tried to sleep. It reminded me of embarrassing moments, mistakes, fears I never shared with anyone. "You think these alone," it whispered. "Why shouldn't I hear them?" I covered my ears. The voice laughed. Then it started answering other people. My mom asked a question from the hallway, and before I could respond, my voice replied from my room, calm, polite, wrong. That wasn't me. I stopped speaking out loud entirely. No comments, no muttering, no sound. It didn't matter. The voice had learned how to talk without me. This morning, I woke up to find my phone unlocked, messages sent in my voice, using words I never chose. And tonight, the voice told me something new. "Tomorrow," it said gently, "you can rest. I'll handle the talking." Story 15, the unsent message. The message was already on my phone when I picked it up. No notification, no vibration, just a text sitting there like it had always been. Unknown. Don't open the door. I frowned. I hadn't heard anyone knock. I typed back, "Who is this?" The reply came instantly. "You don't have time. They're almost there. My heart sped up. Before I could respond, there was a knock. 3 sharp taps. I froze, staring at the front door across the room. No one announced themselves. No footsteps followed. My phone buzzed. Don't answer it. I crept closer to the door, peering through the peephole. No one stood outside. The phone buzzed again. They don't like being seen. The knocking came again, louder this time. I stepped back. How do you know this? I typed. There was a pause, longer than before. Because you sent me the message. My stomach dropped. I scrolled up through the conversation. Earlier timestamps appeared, messages I didn't remember sending. Warnings, instructions, descriptions of things that hadn't happened yet. One message stood out. When the knocking stops, it's too late. The knocking stopped. The house went silent. My phone buzzed one last time. You hesitated longer than last time. The screen went dark. Behind me, something exhaled. Story 16, the smile in the window. It started on rainy nights. I'd be lying in bed reading when I'd glance toward the window across the street. That's when I saw it, a face pressed close to the glass. Not a reflection, not a shadow, but a full face with dark eyes and a wide, unnatural smile. I thought it was a trick of the light at first, streetlights glinting on wet glass. But it didn't go away. The next night, the face was there again, exactly at the same time. Waiting, watching. The smile didn't move, but it felt expectant. I tried telling myself it was someone on the sidewalk, maybe a neighbor, but the angle was wrong. The window was 2 floors up, and no one could reach it from the street. One night, I turned off all the lights, sat perfectly still. The face disappeared. Relief lasted until the next morning when I saw something new, tiny handprints on my own window. Faint, smudged, wet even though it hadn't rained. I started covering my windows. Curtains, blankets, whatever I could find. Still, some nights when I woke up, I could see the faintest glimmer of that smile behind the fabric, like it knew I was watching but still wanted me to see it. Then, one night, it wasn't on the window. It was inside my room. I didn't see it clearly, just the movement of something tall, the glint of a wide smile in the corner. I blinked. Gone. Since then, I leave the lights on, curtains closed, and avoid the window at all costs. But sometimes, when I glance toward the glass, I see the reflection smiling back at me. And it isn't me. Story 17. I'm not alone in my thoughts. Thoughts are usually private. Mine weren't anymore. It started small. I'd be thinking about something, a song, a joke, a memory, and someone else would finish the thought. The phrasing, the punchline, even my own reactions. At first, I thought I was imagining it. Maybe I was just absent-mindedly speaking under my breath. But then it escalated. In class, I'd silently answer a question in my head. A voice would respond immediately. Not aloud, inside my head, but not mine. It didn't belong to anyone I knew. No tone I recognized. Calm, patient, like it had been practicing thinking like me. I tried to ignore it. It tried back. I'd picture something, a scene, a place, a plan. The voice would describe it with more detail than I had imagined. Sometimes it warned me. Don't go there, it said once. I didn't listen. I regretted it. Other times, it asked questions I couldn't answer. Do you know who's behind the door? I never answered. At night, the voice wouldn't sleep. It whispered, commented, repeated fragments of memories. Sometimes it spoke in first person as if it were me, but I wasn't speaking. I tried writing my thoughts down. The voice corrected me. It filled in blanks, erased words I had written, replaced them with its own. I don't know who it is. I don't know why it chose me. But now I can't think freely. Every thought I have, it is there, inside, shaping, waiting, listening. And sometimes, I swear, it thinks ahead of me. Story 18. The map that changes. The map wasn't supposed to be there. I found it folded neatly on my desk when I got home from school. Yellowed paper. Hand-drawn lines. No title. Just a simple layout of my house: living room, kitchen, bedrooms, bathroom. At first, it seemed harmless, almost funny. Someone had drawn my room a little too big. The hallway was crooked, but the details were right. The closet door that stuck, the loose stair rail, the window that never fully closed. I assumed my parents were messing with me. That night, I noticed something new. The map had changed. A thin pencil line branched off from the hallway, leading to a small square labeled storage. We didn't have a storage room. I checked the hallway anyway. Nothing. The next day, another change appeared. The storage room was darker now, shaded in carefully, and behind it, another space, unlabeled. The house felt different that evening, quieter, like sound didn't travel as far. I heard a faint tapping in the walls, soft and irregular. I unfolded the map again. The new space had grown. I followed the hallway, fingers brushing the wall. Halfway down, I felt it, a section colder than the rest. I pressed gently. The wall moved. Behind it was a narrow door I had never seen before. I didn't open it. That night, the tapping became footsteps. In the morning, the map showed the unlabeled room connected directly to my bedroom. A note had been added at the bottom. It's easier if you let the house grow. The door is closer now. I can hear breathing on the other side. The map says there's no hallway between us anymore. Story 19, the name under the bed. I heard my name just as I was falling asleep. Soft, careful, like someone testing it out. I froze, staring at the ceiling. My room was dark, quiet, no footsteps, no movement. I told myself it was a dream. Then it came again. My name, clearer this time. From under my bed. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. The voice didn't sound angry or threatening. It sounded curious. "Is that you?" I whispered, instantly regretting it. There was a pause. Then the voice whispered back, "Yes." My heart pounded. I squeezed my eyes shut. "I'm stuck," it said. "Can you help me?" I didn't answer. The voice sighed. "You used to answer." That part scared me the most. Over the next few nights, it kept talking, never shouting, never demanding, just asking questions, telling stories about things I half remembered, childhood fears, forgotten dreams, thoughts I never said out loud. "You talk in your sleep," it explained gently. I stopped sleeping. One night, I finally looked. I leaned over the edge of the bed and peered into the darkness below. I saw my own eyes looking back at me. The voice smiled. "There you are," it said. "I was wondering when you'd remember. I don't sleep in my bed anymore. But every night, when the room is quiet, I hear someone breathing beneath the floor, using my name." Story 20, the countdown in my head. The number appeared without warning. I was sitting in class, staring at the clock, when a bold 17 flashed through my mind. Not imagined, felt, solid, like a thought with weight. I shook my head, annoyed, and focused on my notes. A minute later, the number changed. 16. I swallowed. The numbers didn't come with pain or sound. They just were, hovering in my thoughts like something waiting to be acknowledged. Every few minutes, the number dropped by 1. I tried to ignore it. I told myself it was stress, lack of sleep, too much caffeine. At 10, my hands started shaking. At 8, I realized something worse. The numbers only changed when I wasn't looking at the clock. When I watched the time pass, the number stayed the same. When I looked away, tick, it dropped. I tested it, stared at the clock for 5 full minutes. Nothing. Looked down at my phone. 7. That night, I sat on my bed watching the digital clock glow in the dark. My eyes burned. I refused to blink. 5. I blinked. 4. My heart raced. I stood up, packing, eyes wide, forcing myself to stay alert. 3. I felt watched. Not by something in the room, but by something waiting for the count to finish. At 1, I whispered, "What happens at 0? The number vanished. Behind me, something exhaled in relief. Story 21. The shadow that copies me. My shadow started misbehaving on a Tuesday. I noticed it while walking home. The sun was low, stretching my shadow long across the sidewalk. I waved my hand. My shadow waved back. A moment too late. I stopped walking. The shadow took one more step. I turned around sharply. The shadow snapped back into place. I laughed it off, but the feeling didn't go away. Over the next few days, the delays got worse. My shadow lingered after I moved, holding poses I had already abandoned. Sometimes it copied movements I hadn't made yet. One afternoon, I stood still and watched. The shadow lifted its head. I hadn't. That night, my room light cast my shadow against the wall. I lay in bed, staring at it, barely breathing. Slowly, the shadow sat up. I couldn't move. It turned its head toward me, movements smooth and confident, like it had practiced. "I'm almost ready," it said, not aloud, but somehow inside me. The next morning, my shadow behaved perfectly. Too perfectly. It moved before I did. People started commenting that I seemed quieter, slower. And sometimes, when the light hits just right, I swear I'm the one copying it. Story 22. The house that remembers. The house isn't new, but it's alive in a way I didn't notice at first. It remembers. I first realized it the day we moved in. I unpacked a box in the kitchen and left it on the counter. When I returned, it was in the living room. I assumed my mom had moved it. She hadn't. Then small things started happening. Doors I never opened would be slightly ajar. Drawers that weren't stuck opened easily. Lights I never turned on flickered on. The house seemed to anticipate me. One night, I walked into the hallway to grab a drink. The lights in my bedroom were already on. I hadn't touched the switch. I knocked on the door. No answer. I opened it. Empty. The next day, I tried testing it. I left my backpack in the hall, returned later. It was in my room. Not just moved, it was unpacked, neatly arranged, as if the house had prepared it for me. It got stranger. The house learned my routines. When I tried to sneak downstairs at midnight, the floorboards groaned louder than usual. When I tried to leave the house, doors locked themselves until I returned inside. I began speaking to it, not expecting a reply, just words into the walls. Sometimes the reply came, a whisper, a creak, a floorboard shifting closer. The house didn't threaten, it observed, it corrected, it guided. One night, I woke to the soft creak of the stairs. The house wasn't just observing anymore. It wanted something. I couldn't see what, but the feeling was undeniable. Now I move cautiously, listening. The house remembers everything I do, everything I don't, and I'm starting to think it's planning its next lesson. Story 23. The face in the phone. It started with a picture. I was scrolling through old photos on my phone when I found one I didn't remember taking. A selfie, perfectly framed, but my expression wasn't mine. My eyes were wide. My mouth was slightly open, terrified. I swiped away. The next morning, my phone buzzed. A notification, new photo saved. I opened it, same picture, but this time the face looked closer, sharper, and behind me in the blurry background, someone or something was standing, watching, smiling. I checked the house, no one there. Over the next few days, photos kept appearing. Random selfies, random moments I didn't capture. Always with that figure in the background, sometimes closer, sometimes almost invisible. Then one night, I received a photo from myself. A photo of me sleeping, taken from above. The figure's face pressed against the lens. I deleted the photos. The figure kept coming back. New angles, new times, always smiling, waiting. I stopped using my phone, left it in another room, tried to sleep. It waited. A soft buzz at 3:03 a.m. A notification, new photo saved. I opened it. The figure was right in front of me, grinning, and for the first time I realized the eyes weren't looking at the camera. They were looking at me. Story 24. The borrowed body. It started with a favor. I was sitting alone in my room when I felt the thought. Not heard, not spoken, just placed gently in my mind. "May I borrow you for a moment?" I panicked, jumped to my feet, heart racing. "Who's there?" I said aloud. The answer came slowly, carefully. Someone who misses walking, breathing, feeling cold air. I should have been terrified. Instead, I felt an overwhelming sadness that wasn't mine. "No," I said, "go away." The presence didn't leave. It waited. That night, I dreamed I was standing just behind my own eyes, watching myself move. My body felt heavy, distant. Someone else wore it like a coat, careful, respectful, amazed by every sensation. When I woke up, my muscles ached as if I'd been moving all night. The voice returned the next evening. Just for a minute, it said, "I won't change anything." I didn't answer. I felt my fingers twitch anyway. After that, things got worse. Sometimes my hands moved before I told them to. Sometimes my reflection smiled when I didn't. I lost minutes, then hours. The presence always thanked me. "You're very kind," it said. "Most people don't share." I begged it to leave. Soon, it replied, "I just need a little more practice." The last thing it said frightened me most of all. "You don't use all of this anyway." I'm still here, I think. But sometimes, when I catch my reflection moving smoothly, confidently, when it feels more awake than I do, I wonder how much time I have left. Story 25, The Man Who Doesn't Blink. I noticed him at the bus stop. He stood across the street, tall and thin, staring directly at me. His eyes were wide open, unblinking. I looked away, uncomfortable. When I looked back, he was gone. The next day I saw him again. Different place. Same stare, same eyes, still not blinking. I timed it once, over a full minute, not a single blink. I told myself he was just a weird guy. Cities are full of them. But he kept appearing. Across the street, in store windows, reflected in dark glass, always watching, always still, never blinking. When I finally gathered the courage to speak to him, my voice came out small. "Why are you staring at me?" He didn't respond. He just smiled. That's when I noticed something worse. His eyes were dry. No moisture, no movement like glass. That night I dreamed I couldn't blink. My eyes burned, but something held them open. The man stood over me, whispering softly. It gets easier once you stop trying. When I woke up, my eyes hurt. Badly. I blinked over and over, relief washing through me. But in the mirror, for just a second, my reflection didn't blink back. Now I see him everywhere. And sometimes, when my eyes ache and refuse to close, I wonder if I'm still watching him. Or if he's finally watching through me. Thanks for listening. If you're brave enough for more, hit subscribe and join us for the next story that will haunt your imagination. Until next time, keep the lights on.